Hello and welcome to Dubai Trains. And today I want to plan a large industry for my layout. Because large industries are great to have on your layout because they're a lot of fun to switch and operate. And you can even build your entire layout or shelf layout around one specific industry. So I'm going to go through 3 easy steps to guide you through this creative process of making and designing and planning a realistic looking industry. So along the way, and this is step 1, we'll be guided by information. Which processes does your industry have? Which structures support that process? And what is the size of the various structures? Now for this video, I'm going to make a brewery as an example, and I've already made a nice video talking about brewery and which processes go on in my video number 87. I don't want to rehash that, but let's just look at some conclusions. And here's a sheet of all the different processes that you see in a brewery, and the numbers are basically the amount of cars that come in or go out each month. So right off the bat, you see that the bottling and shipping warehouse in the middle is the most busy. So that's going to be a relatively large structure that needs to handle a lot of cars. And above that is the grain and malt elevator that receives a considerable amount of cars, so it's good that that will be represented as well. And depending on your time frame, you can have a corn syrup on the offloading section, or perhaps a separate building for packing materials as well, although they won't receive a lot of cars. Now on to step or tip number 2, go big. A lot of industries in the real world are really big, especially after the 40s where industrialization really took place. All the industries became much bigger. They either died off or were not real served, or they just became massive and were real served because you needed a lot of traffic and a lot of cars. And this needs to be taken into consideration into step 3 as well, with the track planning and also the composition of the structures. So in my video, I go into different track plans, or you can check the prototypes or books on that matter. For myself, like I said, I already have a track plan, so I first off started with some sketches and just to see like where would the different buildings fit based on the amount of cars I need to house and what the size of the structure would be. So then on to the 3rd step, and that would be to make a mock-up. A mock-up can really help you to get the right compression, right ratios, and the right composition of that skyline, and to really make sure you don't overdo it and that it fits in with the rest of the layout. And this is a really fun and creative process where you can really determine the skyline more or less of your layout. So here I'm making a mock-up with the modular model building system from ABR Modelworks. And it's a great system because it fits the creative process. It's very flexible, and as you see here, if you want to make some changes, you can just do that really quickly. So this is the brewery in its entirety. Actually not its entirety, because the bridge here suggests that there's more of the brewery off layout. And this is just fitting because you just saw how big these breweries are. This is the bottling and the shipping, so everything will be bottled here in kegs, bottles, cans, and then ultimately goes down to the bottom layer to the shipping. We have multiple bay doors right there. And as is a large brewery, here we have some silos for the grain receival, so grain hoppers will be unloaded here on this track. There's an interconnecting building, then we have this, and then here is another building where we can receive tank cars. It's not a tank car right now, but we can receive tank cars for the corn syrup. So we have some tanks right here and some on top just to illustrate that narrative. And there's a small bridge right there to pump the corn syrup wherever it has to go all the way here to the brewery. In the creative process, a lot changed. Initially I had this building, I think 2 stories, and this one 3 or 4 stories. But as I put everything down, I envisioned that this would be like a pyramid type shape, would be higher here and then less in the middle. But this just was too low. It needed to be higher to fill in the gap between the building and the silos. From aesthetics point, it needs to connect to the bridge. And of course the bridge is a set height because trains need to go underneath. And then thus this became a bit lower, and this really became a smaller secondary building. It doesn't have a fancy roof, just a flat roof, no like edge facade, and just something easy. So there were those changes, and there were a lot more changes. So one trick to create something nice, scenic, and appealing is to add character. So not to make everything exactly the same. I wanted this building to be big, and I could have just filled it all in with windows, but I didn't do that. So I spaced it out with these spacers. So we have a window here, and then added the spacers just to stretch it out a bit, because a packing facility, canning facility, does not need a lot of windows. And then I added this little bevel here, offset, just to give it a little bit more character as it goes down. Otherwise, it's just a giant box. And this also gives depth. You have a lot of things here that give depth, by the way. You can put a smokestack in, then you have this bevel right here, they have bridge, they have truck, they have cans. Then you got this loading platform, then you got the track. So there's a lot of elements in this one section just to give depth. So that's a bit what you want to be doing. So character is to make things uneven, a little bit less flawed. So if I do that, if I push this car away, here you see that the loading bay is in the middle, but it's offset to the side. There's not one loading bay all across the structure, because it's also not needed, because you only want to offload one boxcar there. And just make it asymmetrical. So here's just one door. Could have put a windows, but don't want to. I just want to have a door and a loading door. That's it. To change the buildings, to make them all a little bit different, this one has a larger windows, bay windows, big as possible. This one has relatively small ones. Here we have smaller ones, even smaller, but they're repeated very frequently in a fixed pattern, just to give another sense of maybe a bit more length and thus for depth of the layout. And this is also under an angle. That's also done on purpose. Now, the things I could do to give it a little bit more character is maybe just fill in a few of these windows with bricks, just to make it a little bit offset. I did that with the other structure I built, the backdrop. As you see, there's some quirky things going on there, just to add a little bit more character. Now, as this is the main loading bay, I did want to have a roof here because it was often sheltered, and the roof just also covers the boxcar, so that's handy. And I wanted it over the entire length because it just looks massive, and that's what I want. I want industries to look massive, and this is a massive industry. And if you compare this to a pre-bought industry like that, and it just completely dwarfs it, doesn't it? And you can now also think, like, how can this little structure fill even 2 boxcars? It just doesn't add up, as where this in the background can easily fill the 5 boxcars that it can have right here, or the reefers I should say, because these shouldn't be reefers. And especially with the illusion that this continues here, this continues into the depth, you can maybe add some backdrop here, suggesting more structures. Here is some kind of street, so there's more going on there. So there's a lot happening to the illusion that it looks way bigger than it actually is. So if you want to learn how you can tie all this into the outer world and generate traffic in a structured manner for operating, check the video that's on your screen right now. I want to give a special thanks to all my Patreon supporters. This video could not have happened without them. Thank you very much. Bye bye.